golly. Yeah, dude. This double pillar that I did here, reason for that is that the next timbers are coming across this way, 2 10-footers, and that'll give support to it in the center where it's most vulnerable. But the other thing is, I wanted extra strength here, just to also spread that weight out at the bottom, because there's going to be a lot of weight bearing down on it. So by having a 2.5 foot wide footer at the base of this, spread that weight out a little bit, and then these posts, these pillars will sort of do the same, but just extra strength. I didn't want to try to find something fairly dry but also rot resistant that was going to be like 16 by 16 or 8 by, well, say 8 by 12 that is. So that's why I went with the existing timbers that I already had cut and burned. The other thing is, I was going to just put them attached to each other, like tight to each other, but that just allows moisture to kind of get trapped in there and possibly just cause it to rot a little bit quicker. So by having an airspace of 4 inches between the two, that'll allow the water to drain straight through and not freeze in there and not rot. I would never recommend, well, wood timber and wood foundations are actually fine, like they meet the building code, national building code, as long as you're only 4 feet, I think, below grade, and pressure treated lumber and plywood is used for the exterior. This burning technique is essentially my pressure treating, and I'm about 4 feet below, for the most part, below the soil. But the main thing is I could get away with probably a full 8-foot foundation because of this sand. I mentioned in earlier videos, and if you go all the way back to me starting to clear this lot and dug the first section of the hole here, the footings, I actually started right there. So if you remember, that was like, what was it, March, because the ground still had snow on it. I was able to dig that hole 4 feet deep, despite the fact that anywhere else in typical soil conditions, the ground was still frozen solid, like no frost had come out of the ground yet. So, you know, it's frozen ground. If you haven't tried shoveling that or doing any work to it, it's essentially as hard as rock, literally. Like you try to put a shovel or a pick or something into that, and you may as well be hitting granite. So to be able to shovel it while the ground was still frozen in other places was pretty amazing. Point being that this being sand, the water literally just drains straight through it. No water gets held in here, so there's nothing to freeze. So that's why I was able to dig straight down. It's just sand granules. So the nice thing about that is nothing's settling into the basement. So I had big plans to do a lot of drainage tile around the outside, dig holes all the way to the edge of the cliff down to the bank down to the water. I'm still going to do that. I'll have one drainage pipe and then one air pipe for ventilation, and then also one plumbing pipe that goes out there into sort of a catchment little wetland thing that'll create right where the pipe drains. That's really just going to be for gray water coming from the sink and shower, if I put a shower inside this cabin. So the sand is a bonus in that case. Now the other thing is, you would think sand is not a good foundation. I mean, that's kind of cliche. Don't build your life or structures on shifting sands, but this is not shifting sands. The clay is, or the sand is quite hard down at that level. It's very compact. So it's a very solid surface, and because it drains so well, it's stable. It doesn't keep freezing and thawing and expanding and contracting and moving around. So I'm able to do this technique for that reason. So next thing I need to do now, I got to get this one exactly into place. Then I need to repeat this process on the front of the cabin where the overhang is, where the front porch, covered porch, is going to be. And I think I'm going to do like a 5-foot wide opening there. So 5-foot wide pillars, and then one center pillar to carry this beam, which will carry the floor. But the 2 posts at 5 feet wide allow me to put 2 posts right up that will carry that roof overhang. So it'll transfer the load directly to those instead of down onto timbers. I think timbers would probably be fine, but since I'm digging a hole anyway, I might as well just put pillars down right below each of those posts. I have all the 2x8s cut to start building the floor on top of this, so I might get some of those in place before I finish this, before I build the extension off that side of the cabin for the staircase into the basement and the entrance into the outdoor kitchen. But if I put these in place and get them nailed off, I could stop them from twisting. They're piled by the mill right now. Anyway, this was a bit more work than I thought. I started it yesterday. Let the oil dry on it. Put another thin coat of oil and then dropped into the hole, but to get it perfectly level took a bit of time. Anyway, get at that right now. Starting to warm up. I might go fishing again this afternoon. Bugs aren't bad at all today though. Getting into that time of year where, despite all the rain that we've had, there's less bugs because of the dry early season, spring. Less bugs to reproduce. So even though they'd like the rain to reproduce, there's less of them to do so. Another thing about this structure, this timber frame that I've built underground, is really, it's almost, it's probably, well, it's overkill, I would say, to have these 6x8s around the whole top of the perimeter. The pillars themselves are actually going to carry most of the load of the entire cabin. So when you think about, full length logs, they're going to span from pillar to pillar to pillar on top and spread that load directly or evenly onto each of those things, and then same all the way around. So the fact that I have structural timbers like on the top chord of this foundation, this basement, probably not necessary, but I figure I've got them. I may as well overkill this. And also just the fact that they're so big means that any deterioration over time, like rot, is going to take that much longer because of the size of them. The 2x6s in the middle, intermediary sort of studs, I don't really care if those rot right out. I mean, they should last just as long, almost as long, because I did the same pressure treated technique to them. And anything that's buried fully, like doesn't have an airspace on the inside, like the basement part, I've oiled them, charred them more than usual, and then also oiled them twice. So those will stay fairly rot resistant. But basically, the only reason I have those studs is just to help keep it fairly square for now. On the interior of these walls, I'm going to install diagonal boards around the entire outside of the perimeter, like inside, but on the exterior walls. It's just to stop racking at all that wants to do that over time as maybe the ground does shift. But like I said, so many pieces of wood nailed in so many different directions, I'm not really worried about it. But same thing, why not do it properly and just eliminate any possibility of failure.
update.